guys, it's Katie and welcome back to Steal the Spotlight. Today I have my top 10 thrift tips. That kind of feels like a tongue twister, but anyway, I have decided to put this video together because in the past I've done a lot of thrift hauls, which I will link in the description box if you're interested. And I always end up getting comments saying that they've been thrifting once before and never found anything, they don't see what the hype's about. Or even people who say that they've never been but would love to give it a go but just aren't sure where to start out. So I thought if I put this video together, it might encourage some of you to go thrifting for the first time or maybe even just give it another chance, because honestly I cannot recommend it enough. It is one of my favorite hobbies and also just a great way to get new clothes for your wardrobe without breaking the bank. Tip number 1 is that you do not need to travel to the fancier part of town just to find the better thrift stores. I feel like this has definitely become a common misconception when op shopping, but honestly, if you live out in the suburbs, make use of that, go to those op shops. I often find that the further into the city you get, the higher the prices are. They feel like they can justify upping the price because they know that people will pay for it because people think that it is the better quality op shop, which is totally not true. I always go to the outer suburbs to do my op shopping, and I find that there is a great variety there because often they have a much larger space. They're kind of almost like a huge warehouse, so there's so much more to choose from and dig through. And also the prices are much lower. So definitely try out just your local areas before making the travel into the city. The second tip might sound obvious, but it is simply to Google your area. If you just Google whatever your suburb is and then type in thrift store, keep in mind that you might call it something different in your country, so you might want to type in op shop, second-hand store, anything along those lines, and 9 times out of 10 something will pop up in the Google search, whether it's on an actual thrifting website where people have reviewed that particular op shop, or sometimes even just Google Maps pops up and you know exactly the location of the thrift stores near you. Which actually ties nicely into tip number 3, which is to try and go to op shops that are kind of grouped together in the same suburb. There might be 4 or 5 that you can go to, because honestly there is nothing worse than making the trip out to just one singular op shop that you've heard is good and coming home empty-handed. You really feel like you've wasted your time. So if you go somewhere where there's a few options to choose from, chances are you will come home with a gem. Tip number 4 is to go in with an open mind and do not make any lists. I feel like this one definitely differs depending on who you talk to. Some people are avid list makers and think that it's great to go in with a rough idea just so you don't get overwhelmed, which is totally understandable. But for me, from experience, if I ever go in with a specific item in mind, it practically guarantees I will never ever find it. So I think it's best just to go in with an open mind and see what you can find on the day. Tip number 5 is to remember that now is your time to get creative. That is my favorite part of op shopping. I can go for whatever I want. Crazy, bold things that usually in a retail store I'd never look at because I wouldn't want to waste my money on something I'll only wear a handful of times. However, here in the op shop, you're only spending a couple of dollars, so you're probably going to get your money's worth anyway. Number 6 is potentially the most important tip I am going to mention, and that is not to limit yourself to one particular section of the store. If you are a size 8, do not just look in the size 8 section, because chances are you're going to walk away empty-handed. You need to sift through absolutely anything. For example, I have found some of my favorite items in the plus size section, like my oversized denim jacket and my sheer kind of mermaid shirt. And if I had have just looked in my size, I never would have found those items. Also keep in mind that over the years, sizing has kind of changed. So what's a size 8 now might have been considered a size 12 a few years ago. So it's definitely important to sift through everything. Same goes for genders as well. I always like to check through the men's section for cool jackets or vintage t-shirts. Tip number 7 is also not to overlook accessories. I feel like people can get kind of caught up in just looking for clothes, but my absolute number 1 favorite thing to shop for at thrift stores are belts. I always find a gem. You know, belts in retail stores are kind of overpriced for what they are, but at op shops I can find them for as cheap as 50 cents. they're usually still in pretty good quality and you always find something very unique. Obviously, I've mentioned belts specifically because that's what appeals to me, but same goes for all accessories and even home decor as well. Especially if you're kind of crafty, there are some awesome home decor finds that you can really do up with a cool DIY, which I will actually be doing probably next week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that DIY thrift room decor. Tip number 8 is to remember to still be somewhat selective. It is so easy to get carried away, just grab everything because it's so cheap, but in the end it does still add up. So the process I like to go with is to still literally grab everything that catches your eye, but once you have scouted the entire store, just take a step back and review the pieces you've picked up. You might not want to buy all of them. I think that this is the perfect time to check that they are in a quality that you're happy with. There's no stains, little holes or anything like that. And just make a bit of a yes and a no pile, and usually I do cull it down like about half of what I initially picked up. Number 9 is to remember that thrift stores do have sales just like regular retail stores, usually around the same time as well. So whenever it is change of season, you can pretty much guarantee you'll be getting some items for 50% off. Just recently, when we went from winter into spring, I got such good deals on a ton of jeans. Also, I know that a lot of thrift stores in America specifically do have certain days of the week where they have like 50% off everything. I haven't come across that too much here in Australia, but I have actually come across Salvos have a little chart, not all Salvos but some, have a little chart where they have different colors for the different days of the week, and each day they will have a different discount on certain items. Usually I always end up going when it's 50% off furniture, so honestly I don't know if they ever even change it, but that's something to keep in mind. Also, the staff are usually really friendly because they are volunteers. They're always up for a chat, so just ask them, hey, do you know if there's any sales coming up? And they'll be happy to tell you. Number 10 is to not give up. Please have patience. Honestly, it is inevitable that you are going to come home empty-handed sometimes. You're not always going to find that treasure, but most of the time I do come home with something, so I think that you have to get back up on the horse and give it another go, because if you don't, you are potentially missing out on so many great deals. And I also have a little bonus point, and it's not really a tip, but it's just to consider giving back. If you are really into the thrift lifestyle, I think that it's just good karma to kind of keep the cycle going and donating some of your old things that you don't need anymore, because as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I just think it's important to give back and just keep the cycle moving. So that's all for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed and got a little bit of inspiration to try thrifting out for yourself. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you can see all my other thrift related content that will be coming up super soon. If you are an avid thrift shopper, let me know in the comments what your best find ever is. I'd love to chat to you down there. See you guys in my next one.
Bye.